I'm really, really glad that that screen actually worked because there was a pretty big chance that it just wouldn't, which would have been really, really fun. So, hello, welcome to Last Word on Football. I've previously called this channel Last Word FC. This is going to be a completely new series called Last Word on Football, where whenever I can, I will do a sort of midday roundup of all the biggest football news. That includes Leeds stuff, as I quite like to do, but it's also everything else from around the world of football, including various Premier League bits and bobs, stuff like that. In addition to that, in today's stream, I'm going to do a little bit of a sneaky little peeky behind the curtain. Because I'm streaming from Streamlabs and I film videos from Streamlabs. Also, afternoon, Danny. How's it going? Afternoon, Michael. And thank you, Carlberry. Please indeed smash the like. But yeah, I figured as this is the first one, I'd give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain and show you what it is to basically do a video, the entire behind the scenesy process, because I thought that'd be quite fun in addition to all the various bits of football news. The people that come exclusively for Leeds stuff may be a touch disappointed today because I've got other bits and bobs to talk through, but that is half the fun. If you have any other stories and bits or questions, nice gloves. I have the gloves for a reason, to be fair. It turns out I've discovered this winter I've got a thing called Raynaud's syndrome, which means they don't get enough blood to them in the winter, which means that if I leave them to get too cold, 1 second, I get these nice little blisters. It's very fun, and it hurts quite a lot, especially at 7-a-side, because someone stood on my hand as well, which was very nice. I'll take nice loves as a compliment, though. I quite like that one. I'm going to stick with that rather than gloves. So yeah. Anyway, let's dive in. This is Last Word on Football, and if anyone has any news stories that they want to talk through, just ping them in the chat, and I will happily discuss any of them. Assuming I know something, I might just research on stream if it's something that I'm not aware of. But I'm happy to talk everything through. It's not your bad. It's completely fine, Lee. First up, there has been something very, very interesting around Newcastle United today. We all know that they're owned by Saudi Arabia, and we all know that that could have some potential problems in terms of human rights and sports washing and all that fun stuff. But today there have been some emails dropped about the takeover, which I thought was very, very interesting. Also, for live stream people, you might not be used to being talked at with this sort of speed in terms of a stream, because it's normally sort of video styley. I'm going to do this as video styley as possible as I go through the story, and then I'll get more conversational with the chat as we go on. That's probably the better way to do it. Don't forget the presser tomorrow, Joe. I will not forget the presser in the slightest. I'm going to do my typical post-presser video thing, as I always do, because I quite like doing those. They're quite fun. It always keeps me up to date with what's going on. Might also stream, but then again, I hate competing with Wayneman, a bastard, on his streams, because I know that I don't win that fight, ever. Anyway, there's been a bunch of emails dropped discussing the takeover that have come out of a Freedom of Information request from The Athletic, I think, off the top of my head. And it's discovered a few little things about the Saudi takeover that annoyed me a little bit, and I wanted to discuss. So first up, it discussed how the government met with the Premier League to help to facilitate the move. This happened something like 9 days, I think, in advance of the takeover being announced. And it was various members of the government basically saying, can we help this along? I know you've got your differences with the Premier League and Saudi Arabia. If there could be some appearance of separation between the two, that would be absolutely fantastic. And that seems to have happened, because later on down the process, the Premier League basically said, can we have separation between the Saudi state and the owners of the club? And that's where, is it Amanda Stainsley or something of that ilk? But yeah, that's where she comes in. She is the runner of the club, the supposed chairman, in spite of the fact that Saudi Arabia basically owns the entire thing on a state level. In addition to that, the Foreign Office immediately prepared to answer questions around the journalist Jamal Khashoggi, because everyone, of course, it made sense, asked the question of, hold on a minute, this is a country that murdered a journalist recently. We should probably not allow them to buy their football clubs. And we sort of did anyway. That's a good point. Live stream after him. That makes quite a lot of sense. I might try that, Danny. Afternoon, Henry. How are you doing? So the fact that the Foreign Office were actively prepping answers to these questions shows us that they knew that there would be a bad response to it. The Premier League knew there would be a bad response to it. It's not something that is immediately going to go well. It's not a good thing. I think looking back, it gives us the idea that no matter what, there is no way that the government were going to allow that to not happen, because the UK are, in theory, allies with Saudi Arabia. To tell the Saudi state that they couldn't buy a stake in a UK sports team, not ideal. Quick message in the chat on something that I've not got for later on in the stream, so I'm just going to whack up the comment before I get on to the next one. I'm pleased that Leeds are to sue Everton for £100 million, given that Everton have caused unrest at Leeds with their pursuit of Nonto, knowing they can't afford him. Everton will be cash-strapped. Everton are going to be cash-strapped for the foreseeable future, I think. On the legal cases thing, I had a look through what the commission said into the investigation on all the Everton stuff, and the general gist that I picked up was commissioners saying things along the lines of, in theory, Leeds, Burnley, who else went down? Southampton, Leicester, everyone over 2 seasons, Norwich as well, I think, that was competing with Everton were at a drastic competitive disadvantage because of the amount that Everton had spent. I've seen some people saying that Everton spending what they did, it was only £19 million over the limit, or it was because they didn't get a sponsor from Russia. The Russian sponsor thing, Russia were already at war. That is not a mitigating factor, and that money wouldn't have come till 2025 anyway. The only £19 million over the limit thing is absolutely bonkers to me, because the limit is £105 million. You're running at a £40 million a year loss and saying, but it's fine, we're not losing that much. It's absolutely crazy to me. Moving on to the second of the stories, and this is the one that a lot of people in the chat will not necessarily like. Manchester United. Now, apologies, chat, but this is one that needs to be discussed because they're doing it again. They're looking at promising young wingers, and they're probably going to ruin their careers. A guy called Asani Diao is a major target for a £26 million move with a release clause. Now, we know release clauses are designed to drive clubs away and are designed to be overpriced. And that's why I've said that he's very, very likely someone that is overpriced. And he's got a hell of a lot of potential. He could be one of the better players for his country in the coming years, without a doubt, to me, because he looks like he's got a lot of potential. He's been playing really, really well for his side. And the fact he's got this much potential, and the fact that he's a winger, and the fact he might sign for Manchester United tells me one thing, and that one thing is that he is almost certainly going to waste all of that potential. And it's going to be very, very funny. Manchester United aren't the only ones looking at him. You've also got the likes of Chelsea, obviously, because he's a young player that they can sign for too much money. And I think Arsenal were in the conversation, and maybe Real and Barcelona, those sort of clubs. But I think he'll fall into the same category as Pellistri has there, where they'll sign him and he will sort of blend into the background, and he'll be a 21s player that makes the occasional sub appearance, and then he'll go to Aston Villa and he'll have a banger of a career. And Man United will be like, oh no, we sold him too soon. But the structures at Manchester United just do not work for young players, and I still find that very funny. Outside of Manchester United news, there's a little quick dip into Brighton, which I think is quite interesting. And Real Madrid. Brighton Real Madrid is, I'm not going to say the 4-letter word that is commonly associated with Man U, because this is meant to be a stream for everyone. This is meant to be a stream anyone can come to and feel homely in. Although I do appreciate the sheer Leeds tribalism. Big fan of that. Also had a quick look at this. Chelsea versus and Manchester City, possibly Newcastle, might all be under investigation due to FFP irregularities. I took a quick deep dive in a recent video into the Chelsea and Manchester City stuff, what it means in terms of now we know what's happening with the Everton stuff. Manchester City have misreported their revenues, misreported their spending, and misreported which of the associations they get money from are actually associated with them, which is kind of huge because it's effectively fraud. If they've misreported them in a particular way, they could have been seen to have gained a competitive advantage, which Manchester United City being in the position that they are in at the moment have clearly had a competitive advantage from all of that. And it feels like there's a points penalty coming their way. It just will take a very, very long time. Investigating one case for Everton took several years. There's 115 for Manchester City. it's not going to be a short job. Chelsea, on the other hand, also misrepresented things, and it was the revenues that they were getting. Companies owned by Roman Abramovich between 2012 and 2019 were paying money to Chelsea that didn't show up on the balance books, which is incredibly scummy and effectively breaks FFP rules. And again, throughout that period, there is a very, very clear sign that there was a financial advantage to that. They won a title during that time. I think they won the Champions League in that period. I don't think they get away with that very, very nicely. And I think both Chelsea and Manchester City could have issues coming their way. But whether or not that happens and whether that happens soon is a much bigger question. So, diving back in. Brighton. Real Madrid have Carlo Ancelotti's contract expiring towards the end of this season. The rumour is Ancelotti will then move on to Brazil, which is something that he's wanted to do for a very, very long time. Brazil have never denied this. It's something that he's actively talked about. And Real Madrid will need a manager. And Brighton are really, really good at finding very good managers. As much as Graham Potter didn't stick around at Chelsea, he clearly knew what he was doing at Brighton. Roberto De Zerbi has taken that and built on it, and Real Madrid are going to see it and go, we can build on it too. How much of Brighton doing very, very well comes down to De Zerbi, and how much of it comes down to the recruitment at the club is a big question. But either way, at Real Madrid, he will effectively have an unending budget. On the subject of unending budgets, Chelsea are trying to use theirs to sign Evan Ferguson from Brighton, but he's set to stay at Brighton despite the interest. I can see Brighton just doing a Caicedo on this one and saying £100 million. And as soon as someone bids 100 million, they go, sorry, that was a typo, 120. And because it's Chelsea, they will just say yes. Evan Ferguson is a very, very good striker. Him being at Brighton makes sense for his development because it means he's not going to be forced into moving on, or he's not going to have to rush his development or fight against some of the world's elite. It's not like where you're at Chelsea, where if you don't perform for a season, you're gone and they'll get Vlahovic or something like that. On the subject of Vlahovic, by the way, Chelsea and Arsenal are being a pretty big news story at the moment, in that Dusan Vlahovic has a price set. Apparently, Juventus are looking for something along the lines of £70 million in terms of price tag, and what I've heard is that £70 million price tag is pure cash, just money, no likelihood for a swap deal, which means that any clubs that are looking to offload a hell of a lot of dead weight, such as Chelsea, with the fact that everyone there seems to hate Marc Cucurella, are going to have issues. Because it's about getting the money together, and then you've got to stay under FFP, which isn't a problem for swap deals because you've just swapped the player. You've not spent any money on them. It's purely on the wages. Whether or not Vlahovic gets a move because of this is questionable. Arsenal quite badly need a striker. Chelsea probably need a striker because up top they're not looking too good. Nico Jackson hasn't fitted in as well as they expect. And Nkunku hasn't played yet. And he will play very, very good football when he's at Chelsea. But it's a question of fitness. I don't think Vlahovic moves in January. I think January inflates the prices beyond what they are reasonably at. That is a very, very good question, Henry Chung. I think in terms of who would swap for Vlahovic, depends on the club. If it's Arsenal, I can see them doing a cash plus swap deal for maybe Nketiah or something like that. Maybe Balogun, because off the top of my head, Balogun did not move on. I'm going to have a very quick look. Plays for Monaco. Was that a permanent deal? Did I miss that? I know deadline day was absolutely chaos. It was a permanent deal. Okay. Not Balogun. Maybe Nketiah, I think, would make sense. There's also a few squad players because Serie A is a lower standard, we all have to admit, than the Premier League. So it's a big question as to who Juventus would take, but a lot of players they just would, because they don't have the same depth of talent that Arsenal does. Same applies for Chelsea. Chelsea have one of the deepest squads in the Premier League. It's not very, very good, and it isn't going to compete for the Champions League or the title anytime soon, but it's not a bad squad, and it's one that could quite easily be dipped into in terms of offloading the odd player, saying to Juventus, do you need a left-back? We have Cucurella. Or do you need a centre-back? we can loan you Badiashile or anything like that. There's a lot of players that are not going to get minutes at Chelsea that would love minutes at Juventus that could be the perfect bargaining chip for a move like this. Whether they get the right value out of them is a completely different question. They might have to effectively lose transfer fee because the players you have to give them for a fair deal on Vlahovic might come out to more than £70 million, but we'll see. Chelsea's overpaying for players is something that everyone is going to try and take advantage of, though. The next bit of news, and this is going to be part of segment 2 of the stream as well. I'm going to give a quick introduction on, then I'm going to change all the thumbnail, all the description, all that sort of stuff, and then change it back once I'm done. But the next chunk of news surrounds... I completely forgot about that, yeah. Vlahovic isn't necessarily the issue because Chelsea are also after Ivan Toney. I can't remember when his ban ends. I think it is late November to January. Somewhere in that window, Ivan Toney comes back. And it's not just Chelsea that are after him, it's also Arsenal, because neither of them have a top-quality out-and-out striker. I still rate Eddie Nketiah. He's really good at poaching, basically. Doesn't do the rest of the build-up stuff like Gabriel Jesus, but neither club have an elite striker that they can really use to push on to the next level. Okay, January is when his ban ends. That makes sense. So, in effect, they could, as any of these other clubs, say, we're getting into January. If we sign you now, you can play. We need to make sure that you're at the right standard because you need to keep in mind that Ivan Toney, having not trained with the club for a while, because when you get those gambling bans, you also get banned from training. We saw that with Jordan Stevens at Leeds United. He wasn't allowed to even enter club facilities for 3 months. The question of whether his individual training will have kept him up with Premier League standards is a tough one, but it's one that one of Arsenal and Chelsea might have to take a punt on. Whether it happens in January in the summer is a completely different question because Brentford are not an easy team to rip off. It's hard to work out. Quick question from the audience. Michael Brown, going forward with your excellent podcast channel, do you intend to collaborate with other Leeds content creators? Many go on the established Judge Joe podcast as he goes out of his way to help new podcasters. I have been on a couple of episodes with Joe. I invited him on a stream a couple of weeks back. I'm going to do something January transfer window-y with him, whether that's in December or January. And we had a little bit of a chat a while ago about our most controversial opinions in football and around Leeds United, and that was a really, really fun one. I think Danny was there as well, and he very much didn't like my opinion on Junior Firpo, which was quite funny. The opinion being that I think currently I'd take Firpo over Alioski, but that one wasn't the most popular, and we had some nice fun polls in the background of that one. I'm planning on doing a few more bits with other Leeds content creators. So, for example, I'm in discussions at the moment to go to the Swansea match with a seat in the press box. The idea is I'll have a bit of a chat with Phil in there. I'm planning on at one point, if I can, shadowing him for a day and seeing what the life of a proper football journalist is like, because I only really know the YouTubey bits. Also planning on doing something with the Square Ball whilst I'm over in Leeds for that. Yeah, we'll find out. I've got a lot more planned, is the best way to put that, but because I live in Blackpool and almost everyone else is in Leeds or remote like I am, it's difficult. So, on to the Leeds United bits. This is going to be very, very quick, and then I'm going to dive into the live recording bit that'll take about 10 minutes. Everton are now blaming Spurs for their spending because Spurs wouldn't pay £80 million for a Charlison. That is excellent. Everton also blamed the fact that they didn't what's the word? They didn't get rid of player X, who we all know who that is, their contract earlier on. They said that because they were dealing with the player's well-being and they paid him £10 million, which I feel like is very high for the contract that he would have been on. And they also blamed the fact that they couldn't negotiate to start a contract sooner with a sponsor because of the war in Ukraine. And in response to that, I would have said that Russia was already at war in Ukraine. They had already invaded Crimea. Don't start sponsorships with countries that are doing war crimes. Feels like it's a fairly simple way forward, to be fair. So, into the Leedsy bits. We are currently battling Celtic for a South African striker. He's a 17-year-old by the name of Luke Bartman. who would become an under-21s signing. He's not someone that would dive into the first team. He's someone that's very, very promising. I'll get into this in a little bit more detail in a couple of minutes. But he's basically only been playing since October, and both we and Celtic are keeping an eye on him and saying, I'd quite like to sign this guy. Very promising. I think he was the second youngest South African to ever score in their top division, which, as records go, is a very strong one. In addition to that, we are also in the race for a £3.5 million signing for Nathaniel Adji. Plays for the Swedish side Hammarby, 26 appearances this season, and he's looked very, very good in them because he's got all sorts of clubs looking at him. It'd be £3.5 million. Centre back. I'll get into that in a minute as well. So, right now, I'm going to take you into the behind-the-scenes bits of making a video. We're gonna get a little bit mysterious right now. Just need to make sure that everything is working completely fine because I've prepped everything. I just got to make sure that it actually works. Let's go to YouTube Studio. Okay. Content live. There we go. Details. Switch the thumbnail to say live video recording. I will be returning this video to its original state as well later on. Okay, that seems to have killed something. If Everton do get relegated, they will be in a big financial black hole, even worse than Leeds when they were deducted 10 in the Championship and then 15 when we were relegated to League One. Yeah, it's a big problem for Everton, I think. Financially, there's big questions around whether or not they will get further financial penalties or further points penalties. I reckon if they end up in administration, they've got a big issue, but the likelihood of that feels low. Right, I'm gonna just quickly copy this, whack it in the notepad on the base tags so I can change the title back later. At the end of the stream, I will need everyone to shout the word title at me because I guarantee I'll forget to change it back. Whereas this is just a fun little segment that I've decided to do because I was going to record a video later anyway. I've decided I'll do it now with you guys around so you can drop your comments in as we go. Add a title that describes your stream. Live video recording. Leeds United transfer. Special. Have your say. Bosh. So, if that updates, which I can't check, which is fun, then we should be okay. Also, I need to change a few things on my end rather than just YouTube's end. Need to go into my Leeds content brand. You'll see everything's gone blue. Very nice. Check out the banners. Make sure that we're in the Leeds United transfer swoop banner, which we are now. Can people just very quickly check for me if you're able to see it or have seen it? Can you let me know whether it has changed the thumbnail to the Leeds United live recording one and it's changed the title? Because if it has, I reckon I'm good to go. And Everton's new owners are going to pull out if they get sued and stadium build on hold till then. I think the thing with the stadium build, it's in a really weird situation that could bizarrely quite benefit Everton because that stadium is already earmarked to be part of Euro 2028. That stadium, regardless, will be a part of Euro 2028, which is not a problem for Everton because I feel like if it doesn't get built, either the FA have to very quickly change their application plans and need to change a lot of structural stuff because Anfield didn't even put its name forward, and you need another stadium in the north that can do it. Like maybe, depending on if Leeds are able to force forward some like regeneration project or something, perhaps Elland Road, perhaps something like Bramall Lane, who knows? But I feel like that stadium might happen either way, just because it's like a big part of the infrastructure going forwards, if that makes sense. Can see it. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Danny. Very quickly going to check out this comment before I dive into the video recording bit. I can see Jack Harrison coming back to Leeds next season, regardless of if Leeds get promotion or not. Everton Financial will be a basket case with impending court cases, more so if 777 don't invest. The Harrison question is a big one, and is one that I think might come down to Farke. I think all of the players that are out on loan at the moment, Farke might just have a conversation with them and say, yes, I want you back, or no, I definitely don't want you back because of everything that's happened. Right. Banish Harrison. I think I'm on the side of maybe banish Harrison, but I don't think it's going to be... I don't think fans are going to have anything to do with it. I think it's going to come down to if Daniel Farke has those conversations, if they turn out positive, shit like that. If they buy Harrison for 15 million, we drop the case because we don't want him back. 15 is low. 15 is incredibly low. If he comes back, he's the fourth choice winger. We should cash in. Yeah, I think with Dan James's recent development, combined with Somerville absolutely coming to the fore, I think third choice makes a little bit more sense because I feel like Nonto might go in January, but the question is who to. I think our price point will have changed from 40-ish million to 25, 30 because Nonto's still young, but I don't know if he's quite got it in him. I think Newcastle might come back in for him, so hopefully he has a good season. Yeah, I think I'm at a place right now with all the loanees where I want them to have good seasons where they are, because that means it's easier for them to move on. Like, in the Football Manager save I'm doing at the moment, I will do a stream of that later tonight, by the way. I think something like 6:30 till 8-ish, give or take. I want all of the players that are on loan to do really well, because they're all also on the transfer list. And if they all do really well, that's a shit ton of money coming in. Right. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the live video recording bit. So I'm going to go through all of my banners first of all, and then I will deal with any comments afterwards. If anyone has any questions about any of the players that I'm discussing, any of the topics that I'm discussing, just let me know, ask them, and I will immediately get to it. So I'm going to dive in. So always start with a quick voice check, by the way, because that sort of makes sure that the mic adjusts to your levels. I'm always like a slightly different volume depending on like time of day and shit like that. So I always start by going test, words, test, words, test, words. Leeds United are looking to continue to build for the future, and that's a good thing. It looks like the Whites are looking to use their Finley Gorman cash to build up some new prospects. As we all know, the under-21s have been effectively cleared out in recent seasons. Gelhardt is now in the senior squad, same for Crescencio Somerville. Stroke started in the under-21s. Nonto has never been a youth player, and various other young players are either growing up or leaving. And that means that we need to do a complete refill, buy players for the under-21s, and today has been a big day for rumours around that. The first target that we're looking at is someone called Luke Bartman. Now, he's a South African striker at Cape Town Spurs, and he's someone that has a hell of a lot of potential to build going forwards. He's just 17 years old, meaning that he's one for the future. Finley Gorman has gone out for £3 to £5 million, is the numbers that I've heard bandied around, and he's the perfect replacement. He's a very, very attacking, creative player. He's only played 3 matches, but he's scored a goal already, and he's been playing senior football for just 1 month. His debut came in October, and he's already a first-team player for this South African side of Cape Town Spurs, and we're not the only ones that are looking at him. He'll compete with we will compete with Celtic for the signing, and I think it's looking promising. I think that, in theory, we can offer either Premier League football next season or very, very soon afterwards if we get unlucky with the rest of the season. I think next season, we're looking quite good for automatic promotion. Whether or not we're able to seal him is a big question, because Celtic are also likely to offer Champions League football, because Celtic don't lose. They're in Scotland. It's quite easy to secure the Champions League up there. And it's the start of this youth re-strengthening process that I think is so fundamentally important. Being able to win PL2 a couple of seasons ago was massive. It meant that we were able to attract more talent from all across the world. Mateo Joseph from Espanyol, for example, is someone that we signed because we were able to point to our academy and go, look, we're bringing players up, they're doing really well. At the moment, we can say, look at Crescencio Somerville. He's constantly getting football. There are arguably arguments to make for him getting a spot in the Netherlands squad. Pascal Struijk could feasibly make the Belgium lineup. Belgium, Netherlands. I always forget which one he's decided to align himself to because he can go to either. He's not got a cap with either, so in theory he could play for both. Not both. One of them. I don't know. Indonesia are even in the mix for Struijk, so who knows? Joe Gelhardt is also looking like a very, very promising player, and that is something that we can point out and say, look, all of these players have first team football. All of these players have come through our youth system, and if you come here, fantastic. Being able to attract the likes of Luke Bartman isn't just a good sign for Luke Bartman, it's a good sign for everything beyond that. Outside the under-21s, we've got a second target coming. Nathaniel Adji isn't necessarily someone that we will be able to sign. It's going to be a really, really tricky battle for him because there are a lot of clubs that want him. He's a top quality centre-back wanted by sides including Celtic, Rangers. It's going to be really tough if he has to choose between those two. The other one are going to hate him. Anderlecht and Bologna. It's not just clubs in England that are looking at him. It is clubs from all across Europe with European football, and we are just one of the sides that will be able to offer that to him. The expected fee for him would be between 2.6 and 3.5 million pounds. The website that I got this from put these numbers. My assumption is they've translated into pounds from euros, so it will be 3 to 4 million euros, considering he plays for Hammarby in Sweden. He's got 26 appearances to his name so far, which is not bad. He plays a good amount of football, and he's apparently impressed quite a lot through his time there. He's got 9 clean sheets. He's been a fundamental part of that back line. But a lot of people have been sort of asking whether or not we need another centre-back. And I think that we are quite deceptively weak there. If you look at our lineup of centre-backs, Pascal Struijk, fantastic, brilliant. Joe Rodon, another top-quality centre-back, but he's only here on loan. We have zero guarantee that we'll get to keep him permanently. Aside from the starting pair, Liam Cooper only has 6 months left on his contract, and Charlie Crosswell hasn't played a minute of football at Leeds United this season. Well, he might have played the odd minute, but he's not getting consistent minutes of football, and you can see him becoming unhappy and saying, maybe I want to move. It's quite hard to say. And then, outside of all the links that make sense, we have the inevitable link. The one that happens every single transfer window, regardless of if he's recently moved or not. The one that we can never avoid. Ryan Kent. I saw this and I immediately thought that has to be bullshit. But it looks like there is something genuinely behind the Ryan Kent conversation. He's at Fenerbahce, he's not getting the minutes he wants. Fenerbahce aren't too happy with his performances. So people are saying that in theory he could move from Fenerbahce on loan. It won't be permanent, but I would like to say this one very much probably will not happen. I'd love to say definitely won't, but it's Leeds United. Absolutely anything can go on at Leeds. It's one that I want to call complete nonsense because it's such an easy link. Leeds United might need a winger if Willie Nonto departs in January. Of course, that is something that could absolutely happen because you've got clubs like Spurs that are sniffing around and going, we need creative attackers. We need them on a relatively tight budget compared to Chelsea, Arsenal. Nonto fits the bill. But it won't be Ryan Kent if we replace Willie Nonto, if we look to improve our midfield offering, purely because Ryan Kent is the laziest link. Absolutely everyone, all the time, links to Ryan Kent, and I don't understand why. I feel at this point it's his agent basically reaching out to various journalists and saying, Ryan might be on the move. Leeds could be interested just because Leeds United get clicks. I've experienced it myself through YouTube. I'm happy to be a Leeds United fan, and I'm happy to make Leeds United content because it's the stuff that I enjoy making. But I can't even deny that it's also the stuff that gets the clicks. I can see the fact that I've changed the thumbnail because this is for the after video people. Is a live recording. I'm recording this live. I've got several comments I'm going to click through as I go after this. But the moment I changed my thumbnail to be Leeds United based, clicks went up significantly. I feel like it's his agent just linking Ryan Kent to Leeds United, trying to get more interest from other places, even though Leeds don't give a shit about Ryan Kent and haven't for a long time. Because it is quite hard to care about Ryan Kent, who hasn't had a major impact since his move to Fenerbahce. The Championship is arguably a slightly more difficult division than the Turkish Super League. So why would we want a player that's not performed there? It's daft. The links are stupid. Moving on. In other news, reportedly, Leeds United are also under no financial pressure to sell players. This is huge. This is big news for the rest of the season. Considering the fact that Crescencio Somerville has links, Jorginho Rutter in the summer had links and is likely to still have links because he was linked to Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund are below par this season. Crescencio Somerville was linked to clubs that are all underperforming at the moment. They will need to bolster their sides. But the fact that we're not under financial pressure to sell is huge. Means that we are in a strong negotiating position, can discuss with clubs. I think this is a fair price for him. If you're not willing to pay it, just go away. I'm not going to have this conversation purely because you're not worthy of having the conversation with. The fact that we are able to staunchly protect our players now, rather than saying we probably have to let a few go, is brilliant. It's not like it was in the summer. We're in a strong position. We're in a position of power, and we're able to sort of protect ourselves. In addition to that, it implies that there is a potential budget for signings. Being able to sign big players means that we can help to build on the squad. We can help to continue to grow. Wherever we have weaknesses, a lot of people have pointed out number 10 could be an issue, because if Rutter goes, that creativity is gone. Number 9 could still be an issue because Piru and Rutter are not pure out-and-out number 9s. Left back's not a problem anymore. But central midfield, could we do with more depth? The fact is, if we are under no financial pressure, there is the potential to be able to go out and pick up players. That is a very, very good point. Danny Rumsey in the chat has said Pascal Struijk also had links. Pascal Struijk's links to various different clubs could be a big problem for us in this January window if we didn't have the cash to compete. Because if we didn't have the money to compete and keep our own players, then we'd desperately be scrambling around saying, Pascal, please stay. I know that we've received this bid, but if the bid exceeds this, fine, we'll have to let you go. And the fact that we can just say, right, Pascal, there's been a bid come in. To be clear with you, we are rejecting it because you're a big part of the promotion push. Being able to have those conversations is fundamental to pushing for promotion. It is for every single club. Southampton and Leicester, if they lose their key players, they're just as screwed as we are. Ipswich, if someone comes in for the likes of a Leif Davis, who is the best left back in the Championship, they might have to sell because they don't have those parachute payments or owners that are as wealthy as those at Leeds United. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I am just going to bring up what Danny has said. Please smash the like button. It's hugely appreciated. It really helps us to get pushed out after the fact. And subscribe if you're not already. And I will see you next time. But that is not for the live stream. The live stream is not done yet. We have more to discuss. If you're part of the live stream, please do not leave. That could be a big problem. Anyway, got to make sure that you stick around. I'll be going for a few more minutes, going through your questions, going through the comments and stuff like that. Delving into the comments, wherever we are next season, Falcon needs to start training on local parks. Magic Weekend could ruin the pitch. I seem to have missed something there. Because I saw someone mentioning Wigan versus St Helens at Elland Road, but what's going on? Magic Weekend lineup leaked. Is that happening at Elland Road? Oh dear. That doesn't seem very fun for the pitch, does it? The 2024 Super League Magic Weekend lineup has been leaked, with Warrington Wolves and Leeds Rhinos closing the curtain down on Saturday, the 17th of August, and Huddersfield versus Castleford Tigers doing the same on Sunday, August the 18th. Title, yeah, thank you. Lee, you have absolutely saved my skin there. Massively appreciate it. Let's switch it back so it is fixed for after the stream. Also going to change the thumbnail back. So anyone that delves in doesn't know that we just recorded a cheeky video together. That came out way worse than I wanted that to. Yeah. It's not going to ruin training, at least. It could ruin the pitch for a couple of weeks, but those are the situations in which clubs can pretty easily say, can we just not have a home fixture for a few weeks so the groundsman can deal with it? There's also, in theory, could be a change of turf and weird stuff like that, but we'll find out. Personally, I don't want any of them back. They need moving on. We need players that are committed. That I think I agree with. I feel like, if possible, those players that dipped in, said, it's a bit shit, this championship thing, and then immediately left are players that I would probably want rid of. There's a few that you can have a little bit of a discussion on, but it's not hugely people that you would want to keep around, I think. Angus Kinnear said, we have 2 loan spots left and will be using the loan market. That is a very good thing. I feel like in terms of concrete links in the loan market, it's going to be almost impossible to get right. If I remember right, he said this on the Square Ball podcast immediately after the window slammed shut. But having 2 loan spots left is a very, very big benefit to us, I believe. It's going to be hard to discuss specific links because I think loan spots are perfect for filling in where we have either injuries or underperformances in the squad. And that is almost certainly going to come down to form as we go into January. We are without a doubt going to lose players throughout the December hectic as shit period because we've got something like 7 matches in 30 days. That's going to take a little bit of squad management. And if we lose significant players like Pascal Strauch, like Jorginho Rutel, like Joel Piroux, there could be really big problems. I am also going to switch back the branding to the more general one, which should help to simplify things. But yeah, that's the general gist. I think there's a few players that I'd like to see coming on loan, players that, weirdly, I think it could be easy to get players on loan from the likes of Chelsea or City at the moment because they've been less City, but more Chelsea because they've been hyper investing in like young, promising players and they've not had any football and they're not developing at Chelsea. So it could be quite easy for us to stick our nose in and go, do you fancy minutes? It's the championship, but with the top end of the championship, Farke's a really good coach. Go for it. Anyway, get your final comments in. I'm going to keep streaming until I think 1:45. There's not too long left, but I have various bits and bobs to do for work. I've got a presentation to give this afternoon, and it's got data and everything. It's insane. I'm not quite at the stage of just being able to do YouTube yet, which would be very nice, but that's not where we are. If you've not yet, by the way, make sure that you smash that like button. I'm not the biggest fan of saying the term smash the like button, purely because it just feels a bit violent, and it's not me. I'm just a sort of hit the like button kind of guy. Let's go to the right banner as well. Last word on football. There we go. And yeah, I feel like it's going to be a busy January. And I feel like this is the right time to start doing this series of videos. I think a left back or 10 on loan. I agree with a 10. I'm not sure on left back because we've got Dallas coming back who can do a job at left back. We've got Firpo coming back, who I think is going to be good in the championship. I think people were way too harsh after the goal we conceded because it was Cooper and Ampadu's fault, I think, for losing the man. I think Byram risks being injury prone. It could be worth dipping him, definitely. I like the 49ers' Hammond's approach to signing players. Rodon, Ampadu, Kamara, Anthony Byram were not players on the radar of Leeds supporters in the summer. Only Darlow was. They kept things quiet. Yeah, I like it. The fact that they are pushed up in terms of signings is absolutely key because the moment something gets into the public domain, people start going, why haven't we signed him yet? And the news train keeps on rolling. And regardless of whether a transfer is public discussion or a transfer is kept relatively private, it'll take the same amount of time. But if it's public, there's more pressure on the buying club. So the selling club can negotiate more and the selling club can make more money. The amount of times a selling club is like forced into selling by the fans is really low. You will never get a club saying this person needs to go to this buyer. Fans don't do that. Fans want players in, fans rarely want players out. And the quieter you can keep it, the better, and the 49ers have been really, really good at that. Loans-wise, I get Amad Diallo, especially if we could lose Nonto. I think we definitely need a 10, but that would need to be on a permanent. I think I agree. I think looking at a 10, I don't know if I'm being affected by my Football Manager save at the moment. I will be streaming that at about 6:30, by the way, so stick around for that one. I don't know if I disagree on Amiri anymore, because a lot of people early on in the window were saying things along the lines of Amiri is not the one because of what happened beforehand, but it's probably my bias because on FM I was able to sign him for 500k and now he's worth £10 million. Leeds should learn from the Aaron's deal when Bournemouth hijacked it, so Leeds have the quiet approach. Yeah, I think we did learn. I think we learned that if you start making a move and someone hears about it, we have problems. I don't think that was something that we could necessarily stop, is the problem. I think the Bournemouth hijack came from the agent side rather than the club being too loud or too clumsy or anything like that. I feel like that was leaked out of our control, which ultimately means that it's not easy for us to do deals in the quiet, but when we do really well. I think if we go into negotiations actively telling players, we want you and you will be a key part of our team, but the moment a journalist hears about this, we can call it off. Because there are options. It's easy to forget there's thousands of footballers in the world, and lots of them are very good, and lots of them would fit our squad. It's just when we tell the footballers that we have the option to just leave them, we're in a much stronger position. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave that there for now. 1 second. Amiri could come as he has sacked his representative. Yeah, I think that definitely helped. The fact that his representative was a very, very bad influence on Nadia Amiri. And now he's got the significantly better agent behind him. It's very helpful. Should Leeds play Nonto over James to keep him happy as he has a higher ceiling than James and James won't cause a fuss being on the subs bench? I do not think that will be a problem going into the next month or so. I think going into the next month, we have so much football. It's unbelievable. The amount of matches that we have to play is bonkers. And quite frankly, we'll be rotating players enough for Nonto to not lose his mind. And I'm honestly, I feel like Nonto understands in the first place. Nonto says, yes, I caused a fuss. I can understand why I'm not being picked. Plus, James has had an incredible run of form. It's going to be hard for me to force my way in, which means off the bench, he really needs to fight for that place. It's not going to be an easy one for him, to be honest. But it's about finding balance between the two. At the moment, it's quite hard to drop Dan James. But yeah. Anyway, if I don't see any more comments throughout the rest of my outro, thank you for coming along to the stream. I will have that video up as soon as possible. I'll do a stream later on, about 6:30 for Football Manager. It'll be a little bit shorter than normal because I've got bits and bobs to do around it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the stream. If you're just popping in now, go back to the start, give it a watch through. It should be quite fun. Watch the video later on if you were part of this stream as well, just because it definitely helps. Hope you enjoyed. Drop a like if you haven't yet. Subscribe, even become a channel member, because that is always hugely appreciated. This has been the first episode of Last Word on Football. I will try and do as many of these at roughly midday as I can. Might be after the Daniel Farker presser next time, but we'll find out. And I will see you next time.